My name's Val Regan and I'm the musical director of Out Aloud, which is Sheffield's LGBT choir. We began in 2006 and it came out of an activity which happens once a year in Sheffield called Spring Out. And at that activity, the LGBT community were invited to suggest things that could happen in Sheffield that they would really like to do, especially things that would create a sense of community. And the number one suggestion that came back from the feedback from that event was that people wanted a choir. We started fairly small. We maybe had kind of 20 people to begin with. Now there are about 70 signed up members, so it's grown quite a lot. We've got some people who've been in it since that very first week and some people who've joined us more recently. But when people come, they tend to stay, which is lovely, and it really feels like a family now. For me, the most special thing is the community building that's happened through the choir. There wasn't a really visible LGBT community in Sheffield up to that point. I used to wonder to myself, if I moved to Sheffield now, how would I find other people like me? It's not so easy, and I think the choir has provided a focus for that community. And as time goes by, all the little challenges that you work on as a choir, whether it's just learning a particular song or whether it's going to a particular event and performing, all those things start to bond you more and more. Well, we're a non-auditioned choir and I do work very hard. It's part of the ethos that I have as a community musician. We do work very hard to make it accessible to people who don't read music and perhaps have very little musical background, although there are some very experienced singers and musicians in the choir too. That doesn't necessarily mean that the songs themselves have to be easy. It's all about the approach. And we have a really varied repertoire, and it's important to me that the repertoire is varied. We sing everything from madrigals to pop songs, and I always like to try and choose things which allow us to talk a little bit about the community and who we are, or to illustrate that in some way. That doesn't have to be explicit, sometimes it is, but for example right now we're learning a song called Pipi, which is in Swahili, and Pipi was a huge #1 hit, #1 for weeks in Tanzania and Kenya. It's not about LGBT issues, but singing that song allows us to discuss the context for LGBT people in those countries and discuss some of the repressive laws and so on. So it's a great way of hooking an audience in and then being able to give them some information that they might not be aware of. There are a few important sort of milestones in our year that we now look forward to and work towards. One of them is our annual residential, so we always go away for a weekend. We're close to the beautiful Peak District, so we go away and stay in a youth hostel and take over the village hall for the weekend, and we have a really intensive time of socialising intensely, singing intensely. We have a little homegrown cabaret. It's a lovely weekend. It's something I really look forward to, and I know that choir members do too. We also tend to perform at certain things, so we now regularly perform at the Holocaust Memorial Day in Sheffield, which is an important event for us to be at. We very much enjoy going to the National Street Choirs Festival, which happens in a different city every year. And we loved going to Various Voices. We went for the first time in Dublin a couple of years ago, blew our minds, and we will definitely be going back. Best way to get in touch with us, find out more about us, to book us, to join us, whatever you'd like to do, is to go to our website. It's easy to find, www.outaloud.org.uk, and you'll find all the information there. I was explaining that I was going to do this interview and I was asking our choir members if there's anything in particular they'd like us to say, and one of them said, coming to choir feels like having a great big hug, and I think that's what it should feel like.